Right now at the back end of the wide receiver one conversation, there's a whole lot of question marks, a whole lot. And two of the biggest guys I think that have either consistency or upside are Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson. And, we haven't really seen the breakout yet out of Garrett Wilson because of the quarterback situation. Last year was supposed to solve that with Aaron Rodgers. He got hurt on the first game. And then same thing with Davante Adams, right? We were supposed to see him and Derek Carr continue to carve things up. And Derek Carr got shipped, or, he got released and he went to New Orleans. So quarterback was the issue for both of these guys. It shouldn't be as much for Davante Adams. It should be a whole lot better for Garrett Wilson. Which one of these receivers that you like?
So for me personally, I'm a big fan of Garrett Wilson. I think he's a fantastic player. And then, like you were saying, it's just so unfortunate that last year, because he was another player. Like I loved last year, you could get CD at the end of the first round, and then you could also get Garrett Wilson in the second round.
Yeah.
And I just loved that start. And it ended up, kind of not working out just because of that injury with Aaron Rodgers. But yeah, I think that Garrett Wilson. So when we're looking at wide receivers over the past, I don't have the exact stat in front of me. I was trying to pull it up, but it's all right. It's something like this. All right. So over the past 2 years, I want to say he's wide receiver 5 in terms of targets. And the only guys ahead of him are Davante Adams, Tyreek Hill, and Justin Jefferson. So maybe he's even 4. Maybe there's one other guy in there. So, that's elite company, right? And I think that the most important skill for wide receivers is being able to get targets. Now, there could be targets that they don't lead to fantasy points, but why don't they lead to fantasy points? When I look at the situation, I think it's very easy to see why they don't lead to fantasy points. Trevor Siemian last year, he was out of 48 ranked quarterbacks that had at least 100 dropbacks. He was 46 in terms of adjusted completion percentage. He played, I want to say, for 5 games. Zach Wilson was 48th. When you're looking at catchable ball percentage, you have Trevor Siemian. He was 45th amongst qualified quarterbacks, and Zach Wilson was 29th. So you have just awful quarterback play. And we already talked about it. I guess I'm talking about 2 New York Jets, but I just think that really the quarterback are hampering these 2 guys because these are 2 elite players at their position that can be potential superstars in the league that are just severely hampered. So you have the worst offense in the NFL. They're barely scoring touchdowns. You have a guy who's just seeing a mass amount of targets because he's just really good at football. I think, I kind of talked about it a little bit earlier with CeeDee Lamb and Jamar Chase, where it just hasn't materialized. I just don't think it's materialized because we saw how good Garrett Wilson was for those flashes with Joe Flacco, who could actually throw a football. So I think if Aaron Rodgers is not washed, which is going to be the most important thing this year, we won't know until the season begins. So you're going to have to decide for yourself. But if Aaron Rodgers is not washed, I do think that Garrett Wilson can be one of the best wide receivers in the league and can have potentially, do I think he can be wide receiver 1? I don't know, but I think that he can get really close and finish as a top 3 guy. So I love Garrett Wilson back into the first round.
I'm having trouble with Garrett Wilson because I see the potential. I know him as a player, elite prospect, obviously, and he's proven that he can do 1,000 yards with no matter who's the quarterback, as you already mentioned. But also, and you talked about Aaron Rodgers' level of play, him being 40, 41, 42. Now I know he's getting up there in age.
He's up there.
Yeah, I don't know how old dude is now, but I start to think about where does he get better, right? Obviously the quarterback play will improve. He'll catch a few more balls, but what's the big area? And I think it's touchdowns for him, right? I think we see a lot of improvement touchdown wise for Garrett Wilson. And that's kind of why I think Davante Adams is steal right now in drafts. He's going, depending on where you're looking at, he can go outside of the top 10 receivers at times. And he was the wide receiver 10 last year in PPR. So I'm just to me, that doesn't really make sense. He finished, over 1,100 yards. He only had 8 touchdowns, which for him is well below his average. This is a double-digit guy every year, and you're playing with Jimmy Garoppolo. If you watch Receiver, you watch the show Receiver, you've seen how bad it gets for Davante Adams.
Yeah.
But the quarterback play was terrible. Aiden O'Connell was bad, and now you bring in a guy who's just capable. It's not even that he's good. And Gardner Minshew is just capable. And, if everything if they have time to work everything out, Davante's happy there and he really wants to play under Antonio Pierce, and Minshew is serviceable, can throw around 20 touchdowns, 25 touchdowns, somewhere in that range. I think we can see a really nice season out of Davante Adams, who's, we think about it, he's normally 110, 1,500 yards, 10 touchdowns. you're getting that kind of value at the back end of the wide receiver one conversation. I know he's older. I know he's 31, but he's still in his prime. It's not like he fell off at all to me at all last year. So I think Davante is a hell of a value and just a little bit more of a certainty. I think he's maybe missing some of the upside that Garrett Wilson brings, but I think Davante Adams is one of the safest players you can take at his ADP right now.
So I'm not gonna lie, I just made a video recently on players that will lose your leagues, and I had Davante Adams in there.
Don't watch that shit. If you watch,
I don't like Davante Adams at all. The reason why I don't like Davante Adams is because the quarterback play. Like, I know that people want to say, "Oh, Gardner Minshew's ass." Like, the dude has not done anything throughout his career. People will talk about, "Oh, he made Michael Pittman pretty good last year." Michael Pittman was outside. He was I want to say top 12. I don't even know if he finishes a top 12 wide receiver, but he was near there. The reason why Michael Pittman was really good though last year is because he was going in like the 7th round. You now have to pay a premium price for Davante Adams when we know that the ceiling's not there. So you're basically hoping that he just has a floor year, where last year it was not, it was okay. But he was averaging 15 fantasy points per game. That's not bad, especially when you're looking around in the second round at the guys that are currently going there. You have a lot of question marks. But like, for me, I just rather chase that upside with certain players than just draft a guy who's going to have a floor year. And it's not that I don't think Davante Adams is going to fall off. I don't think he's going to fall off. But you do have him getting up there, 31 years old. He's getting up there in age. You're going to have probably, I'm going to say, some of the worst quarterback play in the NFL. Like, Panthers are up there, Vikings are up there, but he can't be that much higher than these other guys. Gardner Minshew last year threw for 3,300 yards and like 11 touchdowns. So do we think I think his best year is 21 touchdowns. So basically Davante Adams has to have like half that for the whole year with Gardner Minshew under center. It's not that I don't like Davante Adams, the player. I just hate this situation. I don't like the Raiders. I don't believe in Gardner Minshew. I don't believe in that quarterback room whatsoever. So I'd rather go with, a guy like Drake London. I'd rather go with a guy, maybe Deebo Samuel. I think that Deebo should really move up the board a lot.
He will once Ayuk. Yeah.
If Ayuk truly gets moved, I mean, Deebo should be going in that range where Davante Adams going. So there's just other players that I'd rather target. I'd rather have Nico Collins, my boy Devon Achane.
You said Nico Collins over Davante? Stop. You're going a little too far down there. You're going a little too far now, Tyler.
Come on. What are we talking about? He averaged more fantasy points per game last year.
How far down do you have Davante Adams now? How far down?
He's wide receiver 15.
Wide receiver 15. How? He was the wide receiver 10 last year with worse quarterback play.
He was wide receiver 15 in fantasy points per game. Once again, that's his floor. Like, or maybe his ceiling. I think that's his ceiling now.
Nah, he's going to get more touchdowns. You saw how many overthrows did Jimmy Garoppolo have last year? Those ones where he's running.
He has Gardner Minshew. Gardner Minshew's ass. He's not
Gardner
good.
Minshew's going to hit him at least.
He's a journeyman quarterback that started off in Jacksonville. I don't even know where he went after that. Probably just Indy, maybe. I guess Indy.
Philly.
Did he go to Philly? Okay, so this is his fourth team. We think he's Gardner Minshew's here. It's day save. Aiden O'Connell's probably going to be the quarterback. Like, let's be realistic here.
They paid him $11 million a year. Ain't no way.
Well, we'll see, because he's not very good. He's a backup quarterback playing as a starter. I don't think things get better here. I think that they could potentially get worse.
I look at Garrett Wilson. There's obviously you have to tie everything to Aaron Rodgers. That's the quarterback. And there's just so many question marks there. Like, does he look the same coming off the Achilles? I think he'll look fine. But what kind of yardage is it? You talked about Gardner Minshew's touchdowns, right? What kind of yardage is Aaron Rodgers going to throw for this year? Is it going to be 3,500 yards, 3,600 yards? How the hell are we going to get wide receiver, top 5 wide receiver production out of Garrett Wilson? To me, that ceiling's not that high. I think the only value you could really see with Garrett Wilson is going to be touchdowns. And if Aaron Rodgers does what he always does in the red zone, and that's force feed his main target in the red zone. So if he does have an increase, it's going to be because of touchdowns. 1,200 yards is probably where Garrett Wilson's going to finish. It's going to be around 1,200 yards. It's going to be around 100 catches. It ain't going to be much more than that. So there's really not you talk about potential. Like, Davante's floor is 1,500 yards. Davante's floor is like 1,400 yards.
He just had 1,100
with good quarterback play. With good quarterback play,
that's good quarterback play.
He had Derek Carr the year before that, and it was 1,500 yards. So
because Derek Carr is decent,
Derek Carr
than Minshew.
Derek Carr and Minshew. What's the difference between them two? They damn near the same, man. I just feel like this. I feel like this. If you're going to go, if you want upside, I'm not mad if you take Garrett Wilson, right? Like you want to take Garrett Wilson for a little bit of upside, go ahead. I just don't think that it's much more than what we would get out of Davante Adams out of a normal year. You're going to get 1,310. That's what you're hoping you get out of Garrett Wilson. Davante Adams in an average year is going to get that. Why not just take that player instead?
I mean, I'd rather take the chance that Garrett Wilson has Aaron Rodgers for a full year. I'd rather take the chance that Davante breaks fantasy this year, which he probably will. I'd rather take the chance with Drake London, who's basically Mike Evans 2.0, finally with a competent quarterback.
I like that. Actually.
There's, and once again, I mean, I already talked about it lately, slightly, but I don't even think that Debo is honestly going to go. I think Debo is probably going to be middle of the second round. Is probably where he's going to cap out at. I honestly, I would take Debo right after I take, Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley. I would take Debo that high. So
yeah, Debo in your top 10 now?
Not yet, just because he hasn't moved.
Top 10 receivers?
Top 10. Yeah, once Ayuk moves, I'll put him there. Because I still don't know. Do you think he's truly going to get moved?
I think this is him whining, him wanting to hold out.
I think it's like Jonathan Taylor last year.
Yeah, and then he'll get paid. Something will happen whether he'll just report back and play because he can't miss this whole year. He has to go get paid. So I think worst case scenario is like Josh Jacobs. Maybe he shows up late and he plays week 1. But it's disappointing. See, Debo is going to have a monster year though. Like I'm all over.
Yeah, like if that happens too, I still would be high on Debo because I don't like players that do that. I think that's a big red flag when players aren't in training camp. We just see these guys, they're just not right for the season. They need that time. So I think that would be even better for Debo. So we'll see what happens. We still got a little bit of time until that gets figured out and everything. So, but we'll see.
Whole lot of time until your fantasy league start. Make sure you guys follow both of us, Tyler and Justin. I'm going to go this way. Tyler and Justin, man. We're going to be giving you guys fantasy advice throughout the year, and we'll be here on this pod on a weekly basis. So submit your questions in the comments. We'll get to them. Until the next one, peace out, you guys.